Hello ladies and gentlemen and movie lovers of all kind, and welcome back to another new release review. For today I will be covering the first Purge, which is actually the fourth Purge, or fourth Purge film at least. It chronicles the events of how the first Purge took place, and for those of you who don't know, the Purge is when all crime, including murder, is legal for 12 full hours all across America. The first Purge was actually the first Purge. Wow, no, that's a tough one, isn't it? It was the first Purge movie, I'll say, that was not directed by the actual writer of the films, James DeMonaco. And this time was directed by Gerard McMurray. It stars Yvonne Noel, Lex Scott Davis, and Joy Vaughn Wade. We can just hop right into the positives, guys. First and foremost, I've always liked the idea of the Purge. I think the Purge, okay, don't get me wrong, it's not a good idea, good idea for a film series, I should say. I think it's really interesting, and I think there's a lot to explore in there, and that's kind of what I like about this movie series. It's one of those horror series that you could really just do endless movies of and still find ways to make it entertaining. You could just switch up the situation, switch up the location, add these new crazy zany costumes and masks, and I feel like this is a film series that no matter how many you made, they can still be interesting enough to keep your attention. So I just like the general idea of this movie and the whole idea of the Purge movies, and just the fact for this movie in particular, aside from the actual Purge, this one, it actually only takes place on Staten Island, and it's marketed as a sort of experiment. They don't call it the Purge. The Purge is a name that the public actually gives it, and this time it's just supposed to be like a sort of social psychological experiment, so I really like that idea to this movie. Next, I find that the acting in this movie is actually really solid. The three main leads I just mentioned, they're all actually really solid actors, and the whole cast actually, I didn't really find anyone was bad, but the thing that kind of counters it is the fact that a lot of the dialogue writing is bad. The story writing I don't find is horrible, the dialogue can be super cheesy, that's for the negatives. But yeah, the acting, they do the best with what they can. You can tell they're actually trying, so the solid acting is definitely a positive. Next is just the whole atmosphere of the movie. I found it was really creepy. A lot of creepy imagery, a lot of disturbing stuff, and I feel like that stuff was really well done. And just seeing the empty streets and the sirens going off and the fires in the distance and the people screaming and all the things like that, I felt like it was really creepy. You do feel really isolated with these characters, and I thought the atmosphere they really nailed in this movie. Next, I feel like there's a realistic sense to this movie too. Now, obviously, I don't feel like the Purge would actually be anything that would happen, but I feel like there are realistic ideas interwoven in this series. First is, since it's the first Purge, I don't really consider this a spoiler. I guess maybe a minor spoiler, but it is in the trailer, so I don't consider it a spoiler. But this first Purge kicks off, nobody's really killing anybody. They're just kind of vandalizing things, stealing things, nobody's really dying. But in order for this to become a nationwide thing, they need people to die. So the government, or at least this one government official anyway, calls in a bunch of mercenaries dressed as gang members and just regular purgers with masks on and stuff to go and start killing people. And I feel like that would definitely happen because they definitely show the political side to this and show that it's much more than just what they believe it to be a social psychological experiment. It's actually definitely a political move, something that all the politicians want in order to kind of clear up debt and clear out overpopulation and things like that. So I feel like a lot of those ideas, they're really realistic, and they definitely made me feel like, yeah, if this were to happen, that stuff would definitely go down. And just the action in this movie, some of it can be really shaky cammy, but a lot of the gunfights are really well done, and a lot of the hand-to-hand stuff is really well done too, despite some of it being kind of shaky. The gore in the movie is kind of shitty. There's not really any gore. It's just CGI blood splatter and stuff like that, and I don't really find it looks that good. Kind of looks cartoony, but the action is well done. And something that's in the middle ground, guys, it's something you won't actually notice till you get into the movie, but it's the furthest thing from a spoiler. But they give all of the Purgers for the first time these contact lenses that are supposed to act as cameras, but all they really do is glow different colors. So I feel like that was unnecessary. The only reason they wanted them in the movie is because they can look creepy and they can do a lot of creepy things with them, with people hiding in the dark. It does look creepy, and that's kind of what I like about it, is it does kind of work with being creepy, and I don't feel like the technology is actually possible, because I think this takes place in 2018, 16, 17, around that area. So I don't feel like that technology is actually possible, and I feel like they kind of just put it into the movie to get more creepy images in it. In the negatives, first and foremost, this movie is just kind of boring at times. It's the most story-driven Purge movie. The actual purging and the killing and stuff like that doesn't come until the last half an hour of the movie, 40 minutes or so. A lot of it is story, and it's just kind of story you don't really care about. It kind of goes back to how kind of poorly written the dialogue is. You kind of do care about the character's story, but just a lot of the political shit, you don't really care, and it just kind of happens. But really, you're here to see the Purge anyway. You just want to see the purging begin. Next, I find the movie loses its focus a lot. It just kind of, it follows one guy you expect to be the big villain of this one, and then it kind of hops onto another guy, guy and then hops here and hops there. It tries to cover too many characters and too many events, and I find it stretches itself really thin at times, and I found just where you try to focus on so many things at once, you end up losing the audience. And again, back to just the poor writing, I found it was so corny. There's so many one-liners. They try to get this whole like gangster talk the whole time, like these guys are gang members and they're just saying like all these cool things, and maybe that's how that actually talks, but to me, I feel like that's things that people use in comedies where they're trying to make fun of these sort of things. So to me, to see it in this movie that's otherwise pretty serious, I found like a lot of the dialogue was really corny, and there's a lot of one-liners too, and I thought there was a lot of wasted opportunities in this movie too. There was a lot of times I was like, oh, big action sequence coming up, big jump scare, this guy's gonna be creepy, this guy's gonna be great, oh, they can definitely follow along this plot line, and then they don't. They either wrap it up like that and it's gone, or they just never talk about it again and it just doesn't happen. And that stuff, like wasted opportunities like that where you could have made the movie so much better than it actually was. Stuff you just gotta kind of clean up. Either have it in there and follow it along and make it fulfilling, or don't have it in at all. And next thing is, the guys who are actually like the good guys in this movie are not good guys. They emphasize very early on in the movie that these are shitty people. They are drug traffickers, they are weapon traffickers, they are gang members. They are gang members. People are afraid of these guys. The one woman says the Purge takes place one day a year. You guys are like, you know, killing innocent people 364 days a year, but people like celebrate these guys and they're the hero, and they cheer them on, and they're knuckle bumping them and stuff like that. It's kind of like, when the action does go down and these guys are like the gang members are killing these mercenaries, like these guys are trained killers. They are mercenaries for hire. They are good at their job. Where do these guys get their training? They're just like gang members, and maybe some of them do have training, or maybe they're just good at killing people, but like they're twirling around, firing their guns left, right, and center, hitting every target. They're like, you know, dodging them, slashing them up, beating these mercenaries, these trained military operatives in hand-to-hand combat, and I'm like, where did this come from? You know, whatever. They're heroes and you're supposed to root for them, I guess. So to summarize, guys, the first Purge wasn't horrible. It was an okay movie. Like I said, the idea was great. The acting was pretty solid despite the crappy dialogue. The atmosphere was really well done. It was really creepy and you felt really isolated. There are realistic parts, like the fact that people weren't actually killing anyone, and that's kind of nice to see, like how far the Purge comes in the other movies, because it's like way later down the road to see that it actually started because, you know, the government shoved in mercenaries to be like, hey, this works. And like I said, again, the action is actually pretty solid, and the middle ground is the contacts. Not really necessary, don't really need to be in the movie, but they do lead to creepy imagery, so I guess they're okay. And then you go to the negatives. The movie's really boring at times. It's super duper corny. The dialogue writing is horrible. It loses its focus way too much. A lot of wasted opportunities, and why do we cheer for these like murderous thugs, and where the hell did they get all their training? So guys, with all that being said, I'm going to give the first Purge a 5.5 out of 10. So guys, if you like this video, be sure to like, subscribe, and comment. Let me know, what is your favorite Purge movie so far? And as always, guys, thank you so much for watching. And that's a wrap.